It was a sunny afternoon at Crestview High, and the courtyard buzzed with the usual chatter of students enjoying their lunch break. Liam, a quiet and unassuming boy, stood near the vending machine at the corner of the yard. His oversized backpack hung loosely off one shoulder, and his worn sneakers shuffled slightly as he carefully pulled out a crumpled $5 bill from his pocket. His eyes lit up as he inserted the bill, pressed a button, and watched a vanilla ice cream cone drop into the machine's tray. A rare smile appeared on Liam's face as he held the ice cream delicately in his hands. He had saved up all week for this small treat, a reward to himself for finally acing a difficult math quiz. With the cone in hand, he began walking toward the big oak tree at the edge of the courtyard, looking for a quiet spot to enjoy his moment of peace. But peace was not on the agenda that day. "Hey, Liam!" A loud voice rang out, cutting through the noise of the crowd. It was Brad, the golden boy of Crestview High. Tall, athletic, and always surrounded by his entourage, Brad's every move commanded attention. He approached with his signature smirk, his friends trailing behind him, already laughing in anticipation of whatever was about to unfold. Liam froze mid-step. His grip on the ice cream cone tightened, and he cast a nervous glance at the approaching group. "Is that an ice cream cone?" Brad asked, his tone dripping with mockery. "Man, you really know how to treat yourself." The laughter from Brad's group grew louder as they closed in on Liam. He glanced around, hoping for a way out, but the courtyard felt like it had shrunk, trapping him in their sights. Brad stepped even closer, his smirk widening. "You know, Liam, sharing is caring, right?" He reached out, snatched the ice cream cone from Liam's trembling hand, and held it up triumphantly. "Stop it, please," Liam said softly, his voice barely audible over the rising laughter. Without missing a beat, Brad pressed the ice cream into Liam's face, smearing it across his cheeks and nose. Vanilla dripped down onto Liam's shirt as the courtyard erupted into roars of laughter. Phones were whipped out, cameras flashing, capturing the moment from every angle. "Smile for the camera, Ice Cream King," one of Brad's friends jeered, holding up her phone. Liam's face burned, not from the cold ice cream, but from the searing humiliation. His vision blurred as tears threatened to spill. He felt the laughter around him echo like a thunderstorm, each burst sharper and louder than the last. He didn't know how long he stood there, frozen in his shame, but finally his legs moved. He turned and walked away, his head bowed low, his heart pounding painfully in his chest. Behind him, the laughter followed like a shadow, growing fainter but no less cruel. As Liam disappeared around the corner, Brad shouted after him, "Don't forget to thank me for the treat." Another wave of laughter erupted, sealing the moment in infamy. Unbeknownst to Liam, a phone notification buzzed in the hands of one of Brad's friends. The video of the prank had already been shared in a group chat, the caption reading, "The Ice Cream King gets crowned." Liam sat in the back corner of the library, hunched over the table, his arms crossed tightly against his chest. The faint murmur of students flipping pages and whispering to each other offered no comfort. He had chosen the library hoping it would be a refuge, a place where he could escape the laughter that still echoed in his mind. His phone vibrated on the table, snapping him out of his thoughts. Reluctantly, he picked it up, dreading what he might see. A flood of notifications filled the screen, group chats lighting up with mentions, tags, and forwarded messages. His chest tightened. Against his better judgment, he tapped on one of the messages. The video loaded immediately. There he was, frozen on the screen, ice cream dripping from his face as Brad and his friends laughed hysterically in the background. The caption read, "Ice Cream King gets crowned." Liam's hand shook as he hit play. The clip replayed the humiliation in cruel clarity. The smirk on Brad's face, the laughter of the crowd, the vanilla dripping down his shirt. His heart sank as he scrolled through the comments. "This is legendary. Can't stop laughing. What a loser. Highlight of my week." The words felt sharper than knives, cutting deep into his fragile self-esteem. He clenched the phone tightly, trying to stop the tears welling in his eyes. Placing the phone face down on the table, he took a shaky breath and looked around the room. Even here, surrounded by the silence of the library, he felt exposed. Elsewhere, in the cafeteria, Brad's group reveled in their victory. Phones were propped up on the table as the video played on repeat. Their laughter echoed across the room. "This is going viral," Jenny said, scrolling through the growing list of reactions. "Everyone's sharing it. Look at the comments. People are loving it." Brad leaned back in his chair, smugly grinning as he checked his phone. "Of course they are. I've got a gift for this kind of thing. Liam should be thanking me for making him famous." Jenny snorted. "Maybe we should give him a crown or something." The table erupted in laughter, but not everyone in the cafeteria found it funny. Sophie, sitting a few tables away, overheard every word. Her eyes darted toward Brad's group, her jaw clenching as anger flared inside her. She had seen the video earlier, and it had left a sour taste in her mouth. Watching them gloat only deepened her frustration. She stood abruptly, picking up her tray and heading straight for the library. She needed to find Liam. Liam was startled when Sophie slid into the seat across from him. He didn't look up, keeping his eyes fixed on the wood grain of the table. "Hey," Sophie said gently. "I saw the video." Liam's shoulders tensed. He didn't respond. "What they did was awful," she continued, her voice steady, but filled with quiet determination. "You didn't deserve that." Finally, Liam looked up, his eyes red and brimming with tears. "It doesn't matter," he muttered. "Everyone's laughing at me." Sophie leaned forward, her gaze unwavering. "Not everyone. I'm not, and I'm not going to let them get away with this." For the first time since the incident, Liam felt a faint flicker of something other than humiliation. Hope. Liam sat alone on the cracked wooden bench behind the school gym, his eyes fixed on the ground. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the concrete, but he didn't notice. His shoulders slumped, his hands resting limply in his lap. The laughter from the video replayed in his mind, each echo more piercing than the last. His chest felt hollow, as if all the energy to move or speak had been drained out of him. He didn't hear Sophie approach until she was standing right in front of him. "Liam," she said softly. Startled, Liam looked up briefly, then quickly turned his gaze back to the ground. "What do you want?" he muttered, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. Sophie didn't answer right away. Instead, she sat down on the bench beside him, giving him space, but not letting him retreat further into himself. For a moment, neither of them spoke, the silence stretching between them like an unspoken challenge. "I saw the video," Sophie finally said. Her voice was steady, but there was a softness in it that made Liam glance at her out of the corner of his eye. He let out a bitter laugh, more of a choked sound than anything genuine. "Of course you did. Everyone has. It's the joke of the century." Sophie shook her head, her expression firm. "It's not funny," Liam scoffed, leaning forward and resting his elbows on his knees. "It is to them. I'm just a loser, a nobody they can laugh at whenever they want. That's all I am." Sophie leaned closer, her voice cutting through his self-loathing like a sharp blade. "That's not all you are, Liam. Don't let them decide who you are." He turned his head slightly, just enough to look at her. "Then what am I, Sophie? Because right now, I feel like nothing." "You're stronger than you think," Sophie said, her tone unwavering. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. Liam flinched as she opened the video, but she stopped him with a gentle hand on his arm. "Look again," she said. "Not at them, at you." Liam reluctantly turned his eyes to the screen. He watched the familiar scene play out. Brad's smug grin, the ice cream smearing across his face, the laughter. He winced, but Sophie didn't let him look away. "What I see," Sophie said, "is someone who didn't fight back, someone who stood there and took it, even when it hurt. That takes strength, Liam. They think they're powerful because they humiliated you, but they're wrong. True strength is refusing to stoop to their level." Liam swallowed hard, his throat tight. "I didn't stand there because I'm strong. I stood there because I didn't know what else to do." "Maybe," Sophie said, a small smile tugging at her lips. "But you're still here, and that's something. You're not a quitter, Liam. That's the kind of strength that matters." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and for the first time since the prank, he felt a flicker of something other than shame. It was faint, but it was there, a small spark of hope. "What do I do now?" he asked quietly. Sophie placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You show them who you really are, not for them, but for you." Liam nodded slowly, his shoulders straightening ever so slightly. The road ahead seemed impossible, but for the first time he thought maybe, just maybe, he could take the first step. And he wouldn't have to do it alone. Liam sat on the edge of his bed in the small room he called his sanctuary. The dim light from the desk lamp cast long shadows on the peeling wallpaper. His backpack lay discarded in the corner, and his damp shirt from earlier still hung on the back of his chair, a faint vanilla stain serving as a reminder of the day's humiliation. He stared at the floor, his hands gripping the edge of the mattress so tightly his knuckles turned white. The weight of the laughter, the comments, and the endless replay of the prank pressed heavily on his chest. He felt like he was sinking into a bottomless pit of shame. His eyes fell on the old wooden drawer by his bed. Slowly, as if driven by an unseen force, he reached over and pulled it open. There, beneath a stack of papers and a few faded photographs, lay a worn leather journal. He picked it up gingerly, running his fingers over the cover. It was his father's journal, a relic from a man who had always believed in him, even when Liam didn't believe in himself. He flipped through the pages until he found a passage he'd read 100 times but had never truly understood until now. The handwriting was strong and deliberate, and the words leaped off the page. "If you don't change yourself, who will do it for you?" Liam stared at the sentence, the words burning into his mind. He could almost hear his father's voice, calm but resolute, challenging him to stand up, to be more than his circumstances. He looked up from the journal, his gaze landing on the small mirror propped on his desk. He saw his reflection, messy hair, tired eyes, slumped shoulders. A boy who looked as defeated as he felt. But as he stared, something shifted. His jaw tightened, and his hand clenched into a fist. "They won't laugh forever," he muttered under his breath, his voice low but firm. He stood up, his eyes locked on the mirror. "Not if I can help it." The determination in his voice startled even him. He reached for a notebook on his desk and scribbled 2 words at the top of a blank page. Day 1. The next morning, Liam arrived at school with a nervous energy buzzing in his chest. Instead of heading to his usual corner of the library, he walked toward the athletic fields. His heart pounded as he approached the track, where a group of students was warming up. Among them, to no surprise, was Brad. Liam hesitated, his feet almost refusing to move forward. But then he thought of his father's words, of Sophie's unwavering support, and of the promise he had made to himself the night before. Taking a deep breath, he stepped onto the track. A few heads turned, and whispers began to ripple through the group. Brad noticed him and smirked. "Well, well," Brad called out, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Look who decided to join us. Ready for another round, Ice Cream King?" Liam didn't respond. Instead, he walked straight to the coach and asked, "How do I sign up for the team?" The coach raised an eyebrow but nodded. "You'll start at the bottom, kid. Practice is every morning at 6 sharp. Don't be late." "I won't," Liam said, his voice steady. As he walked to the side of the track to wait for further instructions, he felt the weight in his chest begin to lift. This was just the beginning. But for the first time in a long while, he felt like he was moving forward. Liam stood at the edge of the track, his heart pounding as he watched the other members of the running team stretch and jog in perfect rhythm. Their confidence, their camaraderie, it was everything Liam didn't have. But he clenched his fists and took a deep breath. This was where he needed to be. Coach Miller, a gruff man with a whistle perpetually hanging around his neck, waved him over. "All right, kid, I don't know why you're here, but if you're serious, I don't care where you're starting. Just show up, work hard, and don't quit." "Yes, sir," Liam replied quietly. Before the coach could say more, a familiar voice rang out behind Liam. "Are you kidding me?" Brad's tone was thick with mockery. Liam turned to see Brad smirking, his arms crossed. "This team's for athletes, not whatever you are." Laughter rippled through a few of Brad's friends standing nearby. Liam's chest tightened, but he forced himself to stand tall, his eyes meeting Brad's. "I'm here to run," he said simply. Brad's smirk widened. "We'll see how long that lasts." Ignoring the taunts, Liam stepped onto the track for the warm-up lap. His legs felt like lead, and his chest burned after just a few strides. The other runners lapped him easily, their footsteps light and swift, while Liam stumbled awkwardly. Brad jogged past him, laughing as he called out, "You might want to try walking first." Each word stung, but Liam kept moving. His breaths were shallow, his muscles screamed in protest, but he didn't stop. He remembered Sophie's words, "You're not a quitter." He repeated them in his mind like a mantra. As Liam struggled through the final lap, he heard a familiar voice call out from the sidelines, "You're doing great, Liam." Sophie stood near the bleachers, her hands cupped around her mouth to amplify her cheer. "Don't stop!" Liam's pace faltered for a moment, but her words pushed him forward. Step by step, he made it to the finish line, collapsing onto the grass. His chest heaved as he tried to catch his breath, his legs trembling beneath him. Around him, a few of the team members gave him half-curious, half-dismissive glances, while Brad rolled his eyes and muttered, "Pathetic." Coach Miller walked over, clipboard in hand. "Rough start, kid, but you finished. Be here tomorrow, 6 a.m. sharp." "I will," Liam said between gasps, determination flickering in his eyes. The next morning, Liam was the first to arrive. The air was crisp and cold, the track still shrouded in mist. As he stretched, his mind replayed the humiliation of the day before, but this time, it didn't weigh him down. It fueled him. He began to jog around the track, his steps slow but deliberate. By the time the rest of the team arrived, Liam was already sweating, his breath steady and his posture more confident. Brad noticed him immediately, scoffing as he passed. "Still trying, huh?" Liam didn't respond. Instead, he focused on the rhythm of his steps, one foot in front of the other. He wasn't running against Brad or anyone else. He was running for himself. The weeks passed in a blur of early mornings and grueling practices. Liam's legs grew stronger, his pace faster. He still lagged behind the team during sprints, but he stopped noticing their laughter. Each day, he improved, even if it was just by a fraction of a second. Sophie showed up often, standing at the edge of the track with a thermos of coffee and a smile. "You're getting faster," she'd say, her voice full of pride. "I told you, you're stronger than you think." One afternoon, as the team was finishing a timed lap, Liam crossed the finish line just a few steps behind Brad. The usual smirk on Brad's face was gone, replaced by a flicker of surprise. Liam didn't acknowledge it. He was too busy looking at Coach Miller, who gave him a firm nod of approval. As Liam wiped the sweat from his brow, he caught Sophie's eye in the distance. She gave him a thumbs up, her grin wide. For the first time, Liam allowed himself a small smile. He was still at the bottom of the pack, but he was moving forward. And that was enough. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a pale orange glow across the empty streets as Liam laced up his battered sneakers. The cool morning air bit at his skin, but he barely noticed. This had become his routine. Wake up before the world stirred, step onto the pavement, and run. His legs still ached from yesterday's practice, the muscles tight and unrelenting. But Liam ignored the discomfort. He started at a slow jog, the rhythmic pounding of his feet against the asphalt echoing in the quiet dawn. With each step, his breathing grew heavier, the cool air burning his lungs. Sweat trickled down his brow, dripping onto his shirt, but he pressed on. The neighborhood passed in a blur of fences and lampposts. At the steep incline near the park, his pace faltered. His legs screamed in protest, his body begging him to stop. But he gritted his teeth and pushed harder, forcing himself up the hill. His sneakers slipped on the loose gravel, and he fell hard onto his hands and knees. Pain shot through his palms, but Liam stayed there for only a moment, catching his breath. Then he stood. He wiped the dirt from his hands onto his shorts and started running again. At practice, the track became his battlefield. Every morning, Liam arrived earlier than anyone else, running laps before the official drills began. The other team members started to notice his relentless dedication. They no longer laughed as he lagged behind. Instead, they watched in quiet curiosity as Liam pushed himself harder than anyone else. Even Brad seemed to grow uneasy. During a sprint drill, Liam finished just a few strides behind him, his face red but triumphant. Brad turned to glare at him. "Don't get used to it," he muttered. But Liam didn't care. He wasn't running for Brad. He wasn't even running for the team. He was running for himself, to prove that he could be better than the boy he had been before. Weeks turned into months, and the changes in Liam became undeniable. His legs grew stronger, his stride smoother, his pace faster. The once awkward boy who struggled to finish a single lap now moved with quiet confidence. He wasn't the fastest on the team, but he was no longer the slowest. One morning, Coach Miller called for a timed lap, a challenge that always set the team on edge. As they lined up at the starting line, Brad shot Liam a dismissive glance. "Try to keep up," he said with a smirk. The whistle blew and the runners took off. Brad surged ahead immediately, his long strides giving him an early lead. Liam settled into his usual rhythm, focusing on his breathing and pacing himself. Around the halfway mark, he began to close the gap, each step bringing him closer to Brad. By the final turn, the gap had nearly disappeared. Brad glanced over his shoulder, his expression shifting from smug confidence to disbelief. Liam was right behind him, his face set in determination. In the last stretch, Liam dug deep, summoning every ounce of strength left in him. He surged forward, crossing the finish line a split second before Brad. The track fell silent as the team processed what had just happened. Brad's jaw tightened, his face flushed with frustration. Liam, panting heavily, bent over to catch his breath. When he straightened, he saw Coach Miller watching him with a faint smile. "Well done, kid," the coach said, clapping him on the shoulder. Liam turned toward the sidelines and saw Sophie standing there, her grin stretching from ear to ear. She gave him a thumbs up, and for the first time, Liam felt the weight of his journey lift just a little. He had beaten Brad, not because he wanted to humiliate him, but because he had finally proven to himself that he could. Liam wiped the sweat from his brow, his chest still heaving. He wasn't the same boy who had stood helpless in the courtyard weeks ago. He had changed. And the best part? He wasn't done yet. The bleachers were packed with students, teachers, and parents, all buzzing with anticipation. The annual Crestview High cross-country race was a big deal, a test of endurance, skill, and determination. For weeks, it had been the talk of the school, and today's crisp autumn morning was the perfect backdrop for the event. Liam stood near the starting line, stretching his legs and shaking out his arms. The weight of the crowd's chatter felt heavy on his shoulders. He had come so far in the past months, but this was different. This was his first official race, a chance to prove that he wasn't the same boy they had once mocked. "Still think you belong here, Ice Cream King?" Brad's voice cut through Liam's focus. Liam turned to see Brad smirking as he adjusted his running shoes. "Try not to embarrass yourself out there." Liam didn't respond. Instead, he turned his gaze back to the starting line, inhaling deeply. Brad's words didn't sting like they used to. Today wasn't about Brad. It was about Liam. The whistle blew and the runners surged forward like a wave. Brad quickly took the lead, his long strides cutting through the cool morning air with precision. Liam fell into the middle of the pack, pacing himself, his breathing steady and measured. The course wound through the outskirts of the school campus, weaving between wooded trails and open fields. The crowd's cheers grew fainter as the runners disappeared into the trees. Brad was untouchable in the first half of the race, his lead growing with each stride. Behind him, Liam focused on maintaining his rhythm, resisting the urge to push too hard too soon. He knew the course well, had memorized every incline and turn during practice. He had a plan. As they approached the final mile, the course narrowed into a rocky path flanked by dense trees. Brad's lead began to shrink as the terrain grew more challenging. Liam, now near the front of the pack, spotted him just ahead. His legs burned and his lungs ached, but he pushed harder, closing the gap. Suddenly, Brad's foot caught on a jagged rock jutting out from the path. He stumbled, his momentum carrying him forward before he hit the ground hard. A collective gasp rippled through the spectators standing at the edge of the woods. The runners behind him darted around his sprawled figure, too focused on the finish line to stop. Liam saw Brad's fall and hesitated for a fraction of a second. He could push forward, seize the lead, and claim the victory he had worked so hard for. But then he heard Brad groan, saw him struggle to get up, and something inside Liam shifted. Slowing his pace, Liam approached Brad, who was clutching his scraped knee. "Come on," Liam said, extending a hand. "We're not done yet." Brad looked up, his face a mixture of shock and embarrassment. For a moment, it seemed like he might refuse, but then he grasped Liam's hand. Liam pulled him to his feet, steadying him before they both started running again. The crowd erupted into cheers as the two boys emerged from the woods together, sprinting toward the open field where the finish line awaited. Brad limped slightly, but Liam adjusted his pace, staying by his side. As they crossed the final stretch, Liam surged ahead by a single step, breaking the ribbon first. The roar from the crowd was deafening. Students jumped to their feet, and parents applauded wildly. Liam doubled over, hands on his knees, his chest heaving. He had won. But the victory didn't feel like it was just for him. It was for everything he had overcome. Brad crossed moments later, still stunned by what had just happened. He glanced at Liam, his usual arrogance replaced by something quieter, almost respectful. He opened his mouth to speak, but hesitated, as if unsure of what to say. Back at the bleachers, Coach Miller approached Liam and clapped him on the shoulder. "Kid, that was one hell of a race," he said, his voice gruff but filled with pride. "You've got heart, more than most." Liam nodded, too exhausted to respond. He glanced toward the crowd and saw Sophie waving at him, her face glowing with pride. He smiled back, a sense of accomplishment washing over him. As the crowd began to disperse, Brad walked over, his hands in his pockets. "Hey," he said, his voice softer than Liam had ever heard it. "Thanks for, back there." Liam shrugged. "It's what anyone would have done." Brad shook his head. "Not anyone." For the first time, Brad extended a hand, not in mockery, but in respect. Liam hesitated for a moment, then shook it. The gesture wasn't just an apology, it was an acknowledgement of everything Liam had become. Later that night, as Liam replayed the day in his mind, he didn't dwell on the win. What mattered was how far he had come. Not just on the track, but in life. And as he drifted off to sleep, he felt lighter than he had in months, knowing that he had finally silenced the laughter for good. The auditorium buzzed with quiet murmurs as the students of Crestview High filed into their seats. It was the first assembly after the annual cross-country race, and the air carried an unspoken curiosity. Whispers darted through the crowd, some about Liam's unexpected victory, others about Brad's stumble and what had happened afterward. On stage, Principal Reynolds stood at the podium, tapping the microphone to quiet the crowd. "Good morning, students," she began, her voice steady. "Today, we're here to recognize not just athletic achievement, but the qualities that truly define our community: kindness, resilience, and integrity." Her words hung in the air for a moment before she continued. "We have a special guest who would like to say a few words. Brad, the floor is yours." The room grew silent as Brad rose from his seat in the front row. He walked to the stage slowly, the usual cockiness absent from his step. As he reached the podium, he hesitated, gripping its edges tightly. His eyes scanned the sea of faces, many of them filled with curiosity, others with quiet judgment. Brad took a deep breath and began. "I want to talk about what happened during the race," he said, his voice unusually soft. "But first, I need to say something about Liam." Liam, sitting near the back, felt every eye turn toward him. His stomach twisted, unsure of what was coming. Brad continued, his tone steadying as he spoke. "For a long time, I thought being strong meant being the fastest, the toughest, or the loudest. I thought it meant always winning, no matter the cost. But Liam showed me I was wrong." The audience sat in stunned silence, hanging on Brad's every word. "I humiliated him," Brad admitted, his voice dropping. "I made him the butt of my jokes, all because I thought it made me look better. But during that race, when I fell, literally, Liam could have kept going. He could have left me behind and taken the win without a second thought. But he didn't. He stopped to help me, even though I didn't deserve it." Brad paused, his eyes searching the crowd until they landed on Liam. "Liam didn't just beat me in that race. He showed me what it really means to be strong. Liam is stronger, braver, and kinder than I've ever been." Taking a step back from the podium, Brad's shoulders slumped slightly. "I'm sorry, Liam," he said, bowing his head. "I was wrong, and I'll spend the rest of the year proving that I can do better." A hush fell over the auditorium. Then, slowly, Liam stood. The weight of months of humiliation seemed to melt away as he walked toward the stage. When he reached Brad, he didn't hesitate. He extended his hand, and Brad took it, their handshake a silent truce. The audience erupted into applause, students rising from their seats to cheer. Sophie, sitting in the front row, clapped the loudest, a proud grin on her face. For once, the sound of the crowd wasn't mocking or cruel, it was celebratory, a collective acknowledgement of change. As Brad and Liam stepped back from the podium together, Principal Reynolds returned to the microphone. "This," she said, her voice carrying over the applause, "is what Crestview High is all about: growth, forgiveness, and inspiring change." For the first time, Liam looked out at the crowd and smiled. It wasn't about redemption for Brad or even recognition for himself. It was about showing everyone that true strength lay in rising above and lifting others along the way. The hallways of Crestview High felt different in the weeks following the assembly. The usual buzz of gossip and laughter was still there, but it was softer, less sharp. For the first time in a long time, Liam walked through the corridors without feeling the weight of judgmental eyes or the whispers that used to follow him. Instead, there were smiles, nods, and even the occasional pat on the shoulder. Word of Liam's journey had spread far beyond the cross-country team. Students who had once laughed at him now spoke of his strength, and even Brad's public apology became a symbol of change. But Sophie, ever the optimist, saw an opportunity to turn this moment into something bigger. The student council room buzzed with activity as Sophie stood at the head of the long table, her notebook open and filled with ideas. Around her, a mix of students, athletes, drama club members, and even the quieter kids who rarely joined group activities, listened intently. "We've all seen what happened with Liam and Brad," Sophie began, her voice clear and passionate. It wasn't just about a race or an apology. It was about proving that things can change. But it doesn't have to stop there. She looked around the room, her gaze landing on each student. What if we took this and turned it into something bigger, something that could make Crestview a better place for everyone? A hand shot up from the back. "Like what?" asked a boy from the debate team. "Like a campaign," Sophie replied. She flipped to a fresh page in her notebook and wrote in bold letters, "Kindness first." A movement to remind everyone that small acts of kindness can have huge impacts. We can start with simple things, checking in on someone who seems down, standing up for classmates who are being bullied, or even just offering a smile. The room murmured in agreement. Sophie smiled, sensing their enthusiasm. "And Liam," she continued, turning toward him, "you should be our representative. Your story is what inspired this, and I think it can inspire a lot more people." Liam shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "I don't know. I'm not exactly a public speaker." Sophie smiled reassuringly. "You don't have to be. Just being yourself is enough." The campaign launched a week later. Posters with the Kindness First slogan appeared across the school, featuring a picture of Liam mid-run during the cross-country race, with the caption, "Strength isn't just about winning, it's about lifting others." Morning announcements highlighted acts of kindness spotted around the school, from a senior helping a freshman with homework to a group of students inviting a shy classmate to sit with them at lunch. The energy in the school shifted, and even the smallest gestures began to make a difference. During the official Kindness First kickoff assembly, Sophie took the stage, her voice carrying across the packed auditorium. "This campaign isn't just about Liam or Brad or even what happened during the race," she said. "It's about all of us. It's about believing that change is possible and having the courage to make it happen." She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. The truth is, it only takes one person to start, one person to believe that things can get better. Liam believed, and now so do we. The room erupted into applause, but this time it wasn't just for Liam. It was for the school, for the collective decision to be better, kinder, and stronger. In the weeks that followed, the campaign's impact grew. Students stood up for one another in ways they hadn't before. Bullying incidents decreased, and conversations about empathy and respect became a regular part of classroom discussions. Liam found himself approached by students he barely knew, sharing their own struggles and thanking him for inspiring them. As Liam walked through the courtyard one afternoon, Sophie caught up to him, a satisfied grin on her face. "See? I told you things could change." Liam smiled back, looking at the students around him, laughing and talking, not at someone's expense, but in genuine camaraderie. "Yeah," he said, "you were right. It just takes one person." And as they stood there, watching the ripples of kindness spread through Crestview High, Liam realized that the biggest victory wasn't on the track. It was in the hearts of the people around him. The true strength lies in how we rise after falling and inspire others to do the same.